gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, everybody. It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday Five, the UK's biggest Saturday night TV show. Alex has gone for a lie down for a bit, and I'm going to take over for the next hour. As you know, I'm Dr. Renee, along with Will Kingston, Trey Lowe, Kai Wilshaw, and now we have the lovely Emma Trimble with us tonight on the show.
Trump is making Greenland great again.
I'm just going to keep going, looking at your comments, seeing exactly what you feel about Greenland, because this topic is actually driving you mad on your say.
Geopolitics is back, baby. Is Trump a genius?
Again, I say again, it's the end of NATO. It's sad times indeed.
The hypocrisy is not from me, not from the left. It's from this lot who parrot the Kremlin's lines.
Oh, dearie me. It's 8 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5 Extra. Welcome to the Saturday 5 Extra, everybody. We really do want to know your views on this. We've been asking for them. We've got loads of your comments. Our Saturday Ask the Five are going to be about Greenland, and we're just going to keep you up to date with this news as it breaks, and it is breaking all of the time. So send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to get those questions in for Ask the Five, because I will get as many as I can in. But before we start the show again and keep on learning about Greenland, it's your Saturday night news with Sophia Wensler.
Renee, thank you and good evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your headlines. Now, as you've been hearing, Sir Keir Starmer has responded to Donald Trump's plans to impose tariffs on 8 European countries, including the UK, over Greenland, calling it completely wrong. He reiterated, "Our position on Greenland is very clear. It is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and its future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes." Now, the US president has threatened a 10% tariff on all or any goods exported to the US from the 1st of February. In a post on Truth Social, Trump says these would increase to 25% on the 1st of June until a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. French President Emmanuel Macron says the tariff threats are unacceptable, and he's insisted Europe will respond united. Meanwhile, in the UK, Reform leader Nigel Farage reacted on X, saying, "We don't always agree with the US government, and in this case, we certainly don't. These tariffs will hurt us." Tory leader Kemi Badenoch reacted, saying Donald Trump was completely wrong to impose the tariffs. And Lib Dems leader Sir Ed Davey says Trump is now punishing the UK and NATO allies just for doing the right thing. Time for the Prime Minister to stand firm against the bully in the White House. Meanwhile, thousands of people in Greenland and Denmark have been out protesting against the plans by the US president to take over the autonomous Danish territory. In other news now, Kemi Badenoch has told Sir Keir Starmer to refuse China's plans for a new super embassy in London as she joined protesters in the capital today. Hundreds gathered in opposition to Beijing's plans for the embassy at Royal Mink Court, as reported by the Telegraph newspaper. The government is facing mounting calls to reject the scheme over security concerns. The Tory leader says Sir Keir Starmer needs to grow a backbone. Elsewhere, Iran's supreme leader has admitted that thousands have been killed during recent anti-government demonstrations as he blamed President Donald Trump, labelling protesters as terrorists organised by the US and Israel. A human rights group estimates 3,000 people have been killed during the government crackdown on protests, which has sparked international condemnation and demonstrations. Over here in the UK, 4 police officers have been injured and 14 people arrested on suspicion of violent disorder and trespassing outside the Iranian embassy in London. And a councillor who called grooming gang victims white trash could keep his seat after the Labour-led cabinet voted to delay this year's elections. Dennis Jones apologised and stepped down as the leader of Peterborough City Council after his comments were made public back in September last year. Mr Jones, who now sits as an independent, was due to face re-election in May, but could remain a councillor for another year without that public vote. Peterborough City Council is one of 26 to have asked the government for permission to postpone their polls. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to the Saturday 5.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5, everybody. It is now time for this. So I said that I was going to get all of your Greenland questions in, so this is what we're going to do now, guys. And Grant is the first one that we've got, and he says, how does Greenland become part of America help protect us, if it is indeed to help protect the West?
Couple of ways. Number one, this is a really important geopolitical area. So this is a key choke point to access both North America and Europe. We know for a fact that there have been Chinese and Russian submarines that have been lurking in that region. It does make us safer because of the positioning of that region. But I would also say that there are attempts from China and Russia to access the abundant resources of Greenland, and by the US actually taking a stronger position in that area, they will be able to successfully negate that threat as well.
Well, I think that's really important, isn't it? Because China have tried to do that politically, and Denmark haven't let them. The EU has said no. But I think as much as people want to criticise Trump for it being a commercial thing because he wants access to those, it's important because at the moment China have the rest of the world tied up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, and also there's also a concern that they're trying to do a kind of Belt and Road style initiative, effectively getting ownership over Greenland. But I think, I mean, like Will said, even back in the Second World War, this is such a geographically strategic location. When you look on the map, China and Russia are so close together with Greenland in the middle. And even though it might be the case, as many people have pointed out, that Trump doesn't need to own Greenland in order to secure the region, the fact that all of these big geopolitical players are so interested in the Arctic, that it is so important, that I think probably from his perspective, he's thinking, if I have control over this area fully, when the West and European countries and NATO are clearly not serious about their own country's defence, then actually, in a sense, Trump is doing this for us. And I feel somewhat relieved, actually, that there is a world leader who is an ally of the West, who is thinking seriously about, strategic defence in the region, because this is important for us. This would be, effectively protecting us.
Do you agree with that, Kai? Surely.
No. No. I know it's tempting. I'm tempted also to dress this up and to hope for good intentions from President Trump. He's doing this for our benefit, that you called him just now an ally of the West. But you need to take the man at his word. He is not a friend of Europe's. He's said as much. J.D. Vance, his likely successor, is not a friend of Europe's. They are treating us differently, maybe still as allies or friendly, but this is an entirely different relationship, and that changes how we need to respond. The idea that he is doing this out of the goodness of his own heart is naive and ludicrous.
I don't think anybody thinks that.
But they're a critical friend of Europe and a critical friend of European countries. When J.D. Vance came and at the Munich Security Conference laid into European countries over issues to do with free speech and migration, it was because he cares about the security of the West, because he sees it as part and parcel of the same civilization as America. And the same from Trump's point of view. China thinks civilizationally, Russia thinks civilizationally, and America is the only country currently in the West that is thinking in those terms, and that's because they're a critical friend, and it is in our interest.
That's the key insight, in that Europe and Western civilization are no longer the same thing. In fact, Europe is rapidly giving up on the ideals that underpin Western civilization. The US isn't.
But isn't this the final nail in the coffin of any idea that a Western alliance is going to be a bulwark against a China, against a Russia, when we have this kind of complete break in the way that our relationship is?
Let me put Richard's question to Trey, because we haven't heard from you on this. And Richard says, how does the US getting Greenland protect Europe?
It doesn't make a difference. I think Kai's right. They could do exactly the same thing as NATO partners and allies without annexing the whole of Greenland. It's as simple as that. Kai, said it yourself, during the Cold War, they had thousands of soldiers stationed there. Why not bring thousands more and put them there? Have an agreement with your own ally. probably the most staunchest ally that they've got. I mean, like I said, Denmark, lots of soldiers died for American causes. Why not do that? I don't think it's about that. I think it's about ownership, and as the ice caps are melting, easy access to all of those rare earths, that's what it's all about.
That is a very interesting point, because the ice caps are melting more than they ever did, and there are new trade routes that are opening up around there. And who was it, Sarah Palin, who said she could see Russia from her back garden?
And people laughed at her at the time. And she was right.
Yeah.
So
to be my own devil's advocate, they did. There is an existing treaty from the 50s that they could use in order to build basically as many military bases as they like. And Denmark have said they only have to ask and we will say yes.
Yeah. They had 17 in the Cold War. They had 10,000 troops. They have 150 soldiers and one base.
But I think things have changed. War is different, and he wants this stone.
But the tools are there. And what all I'm saying is that, you know, all this does is undermine his arguments for this. It's not about that.
Whether you agree with what Trump is doing or not, it is obvious that the US doesn't trust Europe as a military ally. And I think Europe has given him very good reason for that lack of trust as a result of the fact that they have been complacent for so long.
Well, that leads nicely into Patricia's question, because what Patricia says is, what responsibility do the other NATO members shoulder? And, you know, is NATO, all of the players, are they pulling their weight? What is their responsibility here? And I think that's what Trump has been pushing. He's been saying, you know what, you're not really partners.
Yeah, no, look, there's been a few interesting stories on NATO in the last few weeks. One on Ireland, which spends a pittance on defence, despite the fact that so many of our high-speed internet cables between the US and the UK, for instance, run past Ireland. And essentially, the RAF, our RAF, is under covenant to defend Ireland by air. They have no air defences. So that's one. Spain also sort of refuses, puts its hands up and refuses to spend more. It has now increased its defence spending by a little, but not by much. I mean, the European countries need to take responsibility. I agree.
And
they need to take the lead of Poland, for instance, and raise the amount of spending drastically, not by 2035 like we have.
But it's interesting because both of those places have not been mentioned by Trump in this tariff war. He's picked out particularly Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom and Denmark.
The countries that can step up to the plate. So maybe he's playing a slightly more interesting game here in trying to push NATO allies, as he has done previously, to spend more money. I mean, he thinks in strategic terms in a way that is very uncharacteristic of other Western leaders. So it would be surprising if there is some kind of broader agenda here. But I think the most important thing when it comes to, you know, whether or not other European leaders should step up to the plate is that we don't live in an ideal world. We live in the real world. And it might be the case that giving Greenland to America is the price we have to pay for the entire region's security, for the West.
But where does it stop? What if he demands more and more and more? That's the problem.
Yes, but the point is that sometimes you do have to make pragmatic decisions. And yet, of course, I do think that the people of Greenland should have a say in it. But we do have to live in the real world. And the problem is that Western leaders haven't been living in the real world for the past 40 years.
Can I ask something? What's the likelihood, in your view, that similarly to what we think might unfold in Venezuela, Trump takes control or nominal control of Greenland or whatever, buys it, whatever, for the mineral rights, but then leaves the security over to us and defence for us? Because I really don't think he's interested in running other countries or taking various different territories. I don't think he's that imperialist. I think he just wants to show strength and then disappear.
0% is the answer. You can't make the analogy. You can't make the comparison between Venezuela and Greenland. They're entirely.
You guys will make comparisons between Greenland and Chagos just now, Will. You can answer the question.
Yeah, you can make that comparison, but I just said you can't make the comparison between Venezuela and Greenland.
You're wrong. You just don't want to answer a question you don't like.
The answer is that he obviously does want to take the country, both I think for commercial and for military reasons. They're not mutually exclusive. And if he does take the country, then he's not going to walk away because it would actually be part of the United States.
OK, well, on that
note, improving the economic situation of the United States is also in the benefit of security because it gives them more money to spend on defence.
And they've got the midterms coming up.
Tariffs?
Eileen has asked, should we put tariffs on products sent to America? Trey?
What products?
Tariffs hurt everyone at the end of the day, and I keep asking, everyone's like, oh, Trey, you sit on the fence, but at the end of the day, does it benefit ordinary people? If goods and services are costing a lot more, especially goods are costing a lot more because of tariffs, how's ordinary people going to benefit? And that's the thing, I think people need to wake up and say, are we better off because of Trump? Are we better off because of these policies? And the answer is going to be no. His buddies will be. He's rich and he's billionaire buddies and the people that are behind him, sure. But ordinary people won't be.
You were not a fan of tariffs when they happened. You and I argued over it.
I'm not a fan of tariffs. I'm still not a fan of tariffs. Yeah. I can see the place for them as a strategic tool to achieve geopolitical ends, but from an economic perspective, I'm against them. Tariffs on our products going to the US wouldn't make an iota of difference to the way that the US behaves, so I think it would be the wrong thing to do.
But the reason you and I argued last time is that I thought it was a negotiating ploy and it was a good one. And it has kind of turned out that way, hasn't it?
Well, not if you're an American consumer, because cost of living has been continuing to go up, and I think you can point to the tariffs as one reason for that.
Can we just also... Sorry, can I quickly jump in? Can we dispense of this fiction that the other people across the world are the ones to U-turn and that Trump's tariffs all work? Can I remind you, Taco, Trump always chickens out, his much heralded tariffs... He went back on almost all of those across the world, right? There are some hero examples where, yes, he was true to his word. But he's the one who chickens out. And then other countries, by negotiating, by being a bit more careful, by being diligent, actually have ended up in a much better position.
There are still tariffs from the States. He didn't negate all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 10%. Still. So he didn't chicken out on all of them.
But also
I think Nicolas Maduro would deny that he is a Taco president as well, as he's languishing in a Brooklyn jail.
But I just this idea that seems to be the case, the consensus here, that no other country has any leverage and that our tariffs back wouldn't have any leverage. Well, that's just been proven to be false, and it's not.
This is an interesting question, actually, because I disagree with you, because I don't think we really do have any leverage in a substantial way. What leverage could the UK have to change the policy settings of the United States geopolitically?
The King could send him a nasty letter.
Or a nice letter.
A strongly worded letter.
Carrot or stick,
It's interesting seeing Western leaders and our own, even Kemi Badenoch, Keir Starmer, say, and Nigel Farage as well, saying, this isn't a good thing, this is not good for Britain. Of course it's not. But even if something is strategically in our interests in the broader perspective, which I think America having more involvement in Greenland would be, not necessarily owning it, they are thinking from an American first perspective. And I really do think that rather than entering into some kind of crazy tariff war with America, what we should do is let them know that we are absolutely serious and on their side as their allies. We recognise the importance of the security of the region and we're behind them.
Agreed. I'm not going to let Will speak now because I agreed with
Probably
you.
best.
But listen, guys, coming up after the break, we're going to just deviate slightly to a really important interview that we wanted to bring you, but we will have more on Greenland, so don't go anywhere. But coming up after the break, after Labour's embarrassing U-turn on the controversial ID scheme, and I would say, is it really a U-turn, we will be joined by a digital ID consultant, so stay with us, it's going to be interesting.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I think it's really a shocking statistic to hear, but it's one that we've heard a lot of in recent years, that suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 50. Do you think the government are doing enough to try and reduce that number?
Well, I mean, look, it's a very difficult, very touchy subject. I've lost friends to suicide, so many of us, and it's devastating. It ruins families, ruins lives, and it's so sad that maybe that person did commit suicide, could be here, if there was some bit of support, someone looking out for them. So, look, I'm not pointing the blame at anyone because life's hard, yeah, and it's only going to get tougher this year. So if anyone watching this wants to set up a little group on a Sunday, go and do it, you know. Look after your friends, look after your community. We're all there for one another. Let's all be there next year and the year after and the year after that. That's what it's all about.
And if people want to join in next week, how do they get involved?
Get yourself down to Thatcher's Arms in Brentwood in Essex. Be here for 8 a.m. We're going to have for a lovely stroll to the countryside. Bring your dogs, bring your mates, whoever. Come down here. We'll shake your hands. You're all welcome. Be a lovely day.
I actually think it's a really, really brilliant idea, I have to admit. Well, a GB News reporter, Bethany, who's normally in the studio with me, but I'm sending her out to a pub, also spoke to a few other people who were at the event to see what they thought. Let's have a listen.
Things like today are really, really important, you know. A group of blokes from all walks of life having various different issues that often go unspoken, whether it's, you know, addiction or marital issues or loneliness, social isolation, anxiety, depression, all those sorts of things. You know, it's nice to be able to come down here, have a chat with a bunch of blokes about the various issues going on in their lives.
I think it's really important for men. Hearing some of the stories today, you think you're alone all week and different things, and hearing some stories and talking to others today that you're not, you have to have a chill out from work.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra, everybody, and please do continue to get in touch. We love to get your message, and I will read as many as I can. Get in touch at gbnews.com/yoursay. Get your questions in for Ask the Five, and thank you for your messages so far. But it's now time for our second big interview of the night. Earlier this week, Labour appeared to abandon plans for compulsory digital ID for workers in the 13th, yes, just the 13th, U-turn of Keir Starmer's premiership. The government has confirmed that under these changes, workers will be given the choice of using other documents to verify their identity, and a digital ID card, which was the threat, will only be optional. Downing Street portrayed the change as a technical tweak, but it does significantly water down the impact of the digital ID scheme if you remove the most controversial element. Starmer said the key point of the checks that people would need to show a digital ID form is still there. So how far does this U-turn really go? And what will this mean for our everyday lives? I'm thrilled now to be joined by digital ID consultant Dan Johnson. Hello, Dan. Thank you for joining us. This has been really interesting for me because I've been quite involved in campaigns around digital ID. I wonder what your views are, because I actually feel this is not actually much of a U-turn at all. And ultimately, there will be such pressure to access services via a digital ID that eventually everybody will feel the need, just as they did to go to a restaurant with a COVID vaccine. They needed their QR code. I think it's a similar kind of thing, and it will just be digital ID by the back door.
Well, yes, we live in a very digital society. We're moving more and more online, and the analog ways of proving that we are who we say we are becoming more and more challenging, and also easier to copy and easier to commit fraud. So in my mind, I'm a big supporter of digital ID. I work with digital identity companies, and I do think that we have to embrace digital ID. However, the announcement on the 26th of September last year of a compulsory digital ID was a terrible idea and a terrible announcement, created an awful lot of friction, concern, worry, anger among the population, entirely unnecessarily. We already have a digital ID scheme in the UK. It is supported by the government. It sets a set of strict rules for organisations that work within proving digital identity, and it is really effective. You can already prove your right to work in the UK using a digital ID provided by one of 67 digital verification services that are certified under the Digital Identity and Attribute Trust framework. You can also prove your right to rent. You can prove your identity in order to get a DBS check for, if you're working with young children or vulnerable adults. And there are many more use cases that are coming. The mandatory license conditions are in the process of being changed. So you're going to be able to buy a bottle of wine at a self-service checkout and be able to prove that you're over the age of 18 entirely digitally without waiting for a young person to come out and tell you that you look old. There's lots of great use cases. And equally, the NHS is struggling. Being able to prove your identity and connect data across multiple parts of the NHS, access lots of government services. All these things are really good, really helpful, and will massively benefit and streamline the UK economy and people's lives. The really important thing is it doesn't have to be compulsory and it doesn't have to be mandatory. There are existing ways of proving your identity, and they absolutely must stay. Not everybody likes technology, not everybody has a smartphone, and not everybody likes the idea of digital ID. So being able to prove that you're right to work by taking a passport into the office of the company that you want to work for absolutely should be supported.
Well, you see, that's the thing, isn't it? Because all of the things that you mentioned can actually be done now. Anybody who has a passport or driving licence can prove all of those things. And I really don't mind if somebody comes out and tells me I'm old, so I don't need to be ID when I buy a bottle of wine. And I think the problem is that people are worried that eventually, when all of their data is in one place, that person or that machine telling somebody that they can't have their bottle of wine because they don't look old enough could also tell them that they can't have their donuts because they're too heavy, or they can't have their petrol because they've outstripped their carbon footprint this month. And it will slowly morph into a Chinese-style social credit system. And that's what I certainly don't want. And I think that's the worry of many people.
I completely agree. And neither do I want to live in that dystopian world either. There absolutely must not be a centralised identity system or service. The UK does not want one. It has consistently stated through multiple consultations, the government is running yet another consultation. But if you read any of the consultations, and they're all published on gov.uk, so the government ought to have access to them, they all say that we want a voluntary scheme. We require privacy, and we shouldn't be compelled to use digital forms of ID. The real argument here, which is one that seems to be being missed, is the difference between centralized and decentralized. And I know I'm using technical terms here, but centralized and decentralized identity. You're absolutely right. By having all this data held by one organization or one entity like the government, where you could track data, is a very, very dangerous path to start upon. I used to work with a wonderful human being who turned the phrase honest but curious. If you've got this data, it's going to be really hard not to look at it and not to start profiling individuals, even if you're mandated not to do so. So putting data in a centralized data store is a really terrible idea. The way that the Digital Identity and Attribute Trust framework, which is live and operates in the UK, companies like Lucidity and Yoti, OneID and others on the DVS register, all follow a set of rules. They do not have access to that data. It's held by the individual. We use technologies to make sure that that data is held by that individual, not accessible by the company providing it. And the really important thing is there is choice, user choice. So if you
can I pick up on that notion of choice, because it is the voluntary nature of this proposal now which undermines the initial rationale for digital ID given by Starmer, which was actually around the boats crisis, where he said that if you can track people who are working in the black or working illegally, it'll be easier to monitor and stop the boats. That obviously now has proven to be misleading. How do you feel about the way that this was sold initially and is being sold now by the government?
I agree with you. I think it was dishonest to have stated that the introduction of digital ID will stop the boats and stop illegal working and illegal immigration. We already have a perfectly viable solution that is live today that can be used to prove your right to work in the UK, either digitally or physically using a passport or other government-issued identity documents. So introducing a mandatory digital ID card or digital ID system just for the purposes of preventing illegal immigration, illegal working, was never going to fly. It's not a viable use case. Use cases around efficiency and convenience and privacy are absolutely the things that the government ought to be talking about, the things that we want to do, and the things that we spend, or the country spends a lot of money solving for. Those are the things that we should be addressing with digital ID for the people who want it, and the people who don't want it absolutely mustn't be penalized for not having a digital ID. They absolutely must still be able to obtain exactly the same products and services from government or private sector using physical forms of ID as well as digital.
But whether it's mandatory or not, surely it's building the capability, it's building the capacity that the government are inevitably going to want access to. And so what you're actually doing is you're just queuing up the next step, which is inevitably either it inadvertently becomes compulsory because it's required in all sorts of ways that currently proving your identity is not, and then ultimately because the government steps in and wants to centralise that information.
Which is why government building a digital ID scheme or digital ID service is a bad idea in this country. It works in other countries where citizens are used to government having control over data. In this country, based on our history and based on our legal architecture, we are not comfortable with the idea of government holding this data. So having private sector organizations providing you with a set of tools that enable you to hold your digital identity and share it with organizations that you want to obtain products and services from, and you can choose which company you want to use to hold that data and to provide those services, that's the right way. So if you choose that you don't like a particular company, you then set your ID up with another entity that is also certified, and then carry on. If you're really worried about the kind of cross-pollination of data, which is not possible in the architecture that we're required to provide. But if you're really worried about it, you can have multiple digital IDs. In the same way as you've got multiple physical IDs, you've got driving licenses and passports and birth certificates and all sorts of other, your employee ID and so on. And you can use them entirely independently. So if you want use one digital ID for access to government services, you want to use a different one for access to gaming or buying alcohol or whatever use case you want, then you can. And there's absolutely no way that any organization could possibly track you across those uses. But the reality is, with the digital identity and attribute trust framework, by following the rules, it is not possible to provide that tracking. And this is what the government have done a really terrible job of so far, is educating everybody in the value and the benefits of ID, and also how it's architected in a way that the rest of in the way that we all understand.
I do find it really interesting that we have to be educated in these things, Dan. But so thank you so much for your time. We're clearly closer than I thought we were going to be. It's really appreciated you explaining it to us. A government spokesman has said, "We are committed to mandatory digital right-to-work checks. Digital ID will make everyday life easier for people, ensuring public services are more personal, joined up and effective, while also remaining inclusive." But now it's time to get involved. In our You Decide poll, you can do so by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. And we are asking, was Donald Trump right to impose tariffs on European countries over Greenland? We'll bring you the results before the end of the show. And I think I know how you're going to vote, but it might be...
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be 50-50. But anyway, join us after the break for more tariff reactions, because you clearly like this topic.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello. Should be a largely sunny Sunday for the Algarve. We are looking at some showery rain crossing the Canaries and staying fairly wet in Barcelona. A weather front pushing south, bringing some outbreaks of rain across the Canaries on Sunday. Looking a bit dry and brighter into next week. We've got a feed of showery rain also across the south of France and down to Catalonia. The southern tip of Italy also likely to see a few showers. And a cool breeze blowing its way across Crete. As I said, the Canaries looking brighter into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We're expecting some rather dense areas of fog through the overnight period. This could cause some visibility issues in the morning. Much clearer skies across Scotland though, so turning colder here. And we do still have some rather thick areas of cloud through the first part of this evening, all thanks to this frontal system. Not only has it brought cloud, but it's also brought some spells of rain. This will clear into northern parts of Scotland through the overnight period. And for many areas, it should remain largely dry. A few showers still across Northern Ireland, and at times this cloud will be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle, but we are expecting some rather stubborn fog through the first part of Sunday morning. This could be very slow to clear and could cause some travel disruption through the early hours, so do take care if you're out and about early through Sunday morning. Now across Scotland it's a slightly different story. Clearer skies here, so quite a sharp frost. If we do see any mist or fog, it's likely to turn freezing. Much cloudier across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, some showers at times around coastal areas, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales. Some very low, thick cloud at times, so it is going to be quite a grey, murky start for many of us. Also further spells of rain for the second half of the weekend, at first across southwest England and Wales, pushing northwards into the rest of England through the course of the morning. The best of the brightness likely across parts of Sussex and Kent, perhaps parts of East Anglia later on, and also across the far north of Scotland, perhaps even seeing some sunny spells here, but likely to remain fairly chilly under cloudier skies, though highs across the south reaching around 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. Heading into Monday, it's a fairly similar day. Once again, some mist and fog to start and plenty of cloud through the course of the day. This at times will bring in some outbreaks of rain, particularly across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. Once again, the best of the brightness across the far southeast and the far north of Scotland. More cloud to come into next week, though temperatures should remain mostly mild.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. So let's bring you up to date if you're just joining us. It's been a bit of a busy show. Donald Trump has announced plans to hit the UK, Denmark and other European countries with a 10% tariff on all or any goods exported to the US from the 1st of February. In a post on Truth Social, the US president says these will remain in place until such a time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. World peace is at stake. China want Greenland and there is not a thing Denmark can do about it. Sir Keir Starmer said applying tariffs on allies for pursuing the collective security of NATO allies is completely wrong. We will, of course, be pursuing this directly with the US administration. So, guys, it's been busy, hasn't it? I mean, Emma, you've missed the first 2 hours of this where we have examined almost every angle of this. I think one of the angles we haven't examined so much is how will this be received, do you think, by his MAGA base?
I think that they will be very on board with it. Because he's actually had some criticism from within the Trump tribe for not being as America first as they want him to be. They see, for example, his allying with Israel as a betrayal of America first. So there is a whole movement within the United States that is really opposed to America being effectively neocons, being interventionists when it comes to other countries. Now, whilst this may on the surface look like it's interventionist because it does concern basically taking over another country, from their perspective, strategically, it is entirely America first. It's about expanding American strategic control of a region and basically putting two fingers up to China and Russia.
Yeah, that distinction with, the endless wars of the early 2000s is important. This isn't, kind of interventionist in that sense, because those wars were a net negative and a net detractor for America economically, militarily in the end, whereas this, I think his base will see as being a savvy decision both for America commercially, but also for America's security and stability.
And it's also interesting, I think, that there are some lunatics in America who interpret every one of Trump's moves as being somehow puppeteered by Zionists. That when it came to Venezuela, there were a lot of people who were saying this is all about, there's some kind of Israeli motivation behind this, but when it comes to Greenland, I haven't seen very much talk of this being some kind of Zionist plot.
Interesting. You probably haven't seen the latest Candace Owens episode,
No,
but we'll wait for that one.
Kai, you were screwing up your face when Emma started speaking, which is not very polite, I might say, to a lady. But anyway, in the interim, how much of this do you think is to do with the midterms and keeping that base happy?
Yeah, I was going to say this earlier. I think our interviewee, Laurie, said, this isn't about the long term. Well, it's not about the long term, it's the midterms. And he's got a set of elections coming up that, by the way, publicly in an interview this week, he said, do we need them? Do we need elections? Who knows? He's not doing so well. And let's not forget also that on Greenland specifically, there's a bipartisan delegation of US congressmen and women out there right now to show strength, to show support to Greenland and to Denmark. So all of this is going on as well, right? So there's that piece, but also the idea that this is a distraction from other things that are going on, other inconvenient facts of life right now if you're living in the United States. Minneapolis, there's this huge row that's ongoing where the ICE agent who shot a civilian in the face, the protests around that are still going on. There's the cost of living crisis, which we've mentioned a few times, but, people are being hit by tariffs in the pocket, and this will do nothing to allay that. So, is this a distraction? Is this some red meat to his base? Who knows? But I think certainly the midterms, and we're going to see more of this sort of erratic behaviour in the run-up to the midterms as he tries to find something.
Yeah, Trey, do you think that this is just red meat for his base to say that he is this America first, I want Greenland because it's good for us in many ways, I'm going to do it? Do you think that's what they want to hear?
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's beyond that. I think one thing about Trump, he's quite authentic, isn't it? I generally think this is all about business and it's a money move for him. Yes, it's a distraction, but he's doing exactly what people wanted him to do, but not for the right people. He is a businessman. There's money to be made here. Like we said earlier, the ice caps are melting. And I think that's all he really cares about. But he knows his MAGA base will eat up every time he looks tough. And he looks very, very tough. And I think that's what they're going to like.
However, I do think that the reasoning behind this as being strategic is authentic and sincere, that this is strategically important. And whilst the grassroots MAGA base might be very pleased that this seems to be an America first move, or they might perceive it in that way, that politically speaking, there could be a Republican revolt over this. That there are people in the Republican Party who will be very unhappy with this. And actually, Trump has shown himself totally willing to alienate the MAGA first grassroots base when it comes to other geopolitical issues. Yeah. So I think it's more complicated than that.
I didn't get to the point. The reason I was screwing up my face, this sort of convenient fiction of this being an America first policy. I mean, you tried this tangle yourselves up in knots about this with Venezuela too. That's a nonsense. Come on.
Why is it nonsense?
He's retro-engineering an excuse into...
But he's not made this argument.
A man that is essentially just deciding on a whim. Well, so one thing we haven't talked about, which we would have if it was Joe Biden, we did talk about this, his many missteps and the failure of the Democrats to actually confront that reality is Trump is showing signs of an accelerated aging, erratic behaviour.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
No, it's not. It's what we were talking about in the green room before we started. He's showing signs of dementia.
No, that's ridiculous.
You know it. Everyone
No, stop.
knows it. The GP on the panel knows.
Don't put words in my mouth. My words are better than yours. It's absolutely ridiculous to do this. Just because Joe Biden had dementia, we now need to do the what about thing with Trump. Everyone who watches Trump knows that this is still Donald Trump. Everyone can see it.
Dr. Renee, what do you think?
I do think there are some parts of his behaviour which are erratic.
He's always been erratic. That's not an age thing. That's a Trump thing.
I think some of his language sometimes looks...
That's not dementia. That's Donald Trump.
All right, if you say
he's been doing this for the last 10 years.
Guys, I think Will is absolutely right. This is what Trump has always done, and this is what's good for Trump and the people around him, and they're the only people that are going to benefit from this. The ordinary MAGA base will not benefit economically at all. They'll get poorer.
Can I just quickly say, it's not Trump who's saying that this Greenland thing is America first. I'm saying that I think that there is a group in the MAGA, a base in the MAGA grassroots who will perceive this as being America first, because this is something that it's not like getting involved in the Middle East. It's not like bombing Venezuela. It's very straightforwardly, strategically taking control of a landmass that is in America's interest. So they will perceive it that way. But that's not. He's not saying this is an America first.
It could be viewed through the prism of American greatness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Add into the States. I absolutely agree. And I do think there is one part of Trump's approach to everything which I do envy in a leader, in that he does look like, firstly, he's in control. Secondly, he doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks. If he thinks that a decision is right, he's going to make it. And I think we are lacking that.
And you know what? The strategy of it is perfectly lucid because it totally makes sense.
But Dr. Ray, you're forgetting, they are superpowers. Any leader can look great when you've got an army that powerful behind you. It's very different.
You can still have
any leader can.
Unlike Denmark, which doesn't.
I like this, having a strong leader, right? But what you're saying, you're just extolling the virtues of an autocrat. They have an autocrat in charge in the White House. It's as simple as that.
They've still got free speech, Kai.
Touche.
But anyway, guys, our poll results are in. Was Donald Trump right to impose tariffs on European countries over Greenland? 49%
Love it.
said yes, and 51% said no. And that does reflect what we've been seeing. Also, it's been very, very split. I think that's the most balanced poll I've ever seen on GB.
Sure. Absolutely.
But anyway, guys, coming up, it wouldn't be the Saturday 5 without some trigger tantrums, just to lighten the move. So we will actually have a look at those after the break, because we've missed some of that today because we've had to follow this really important breaking story. So I'm going to see you shortly, and we'll make you giggle at the end of the show.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra. As I said before the break, it would only be right to end the show with some triggered tantrums, because they're your favourite part and they're mine too. So I'm going to start straight away with Trey for his tantrum this week.
So my tantrum is from someone that you wouldn't necessarily expect to have this kind of banter. Let's roll the tape.
Don't get me started on 5 Prime Ministers, 6 Chancellors, 8 Home Secretaries, 16 Housing Ministers. They had more positions in 14 years than the Kama Sutra. No wonder they're knackered and they left the country screwed.
Yes, good. I just thought that was a bit of banter from someone that you don't expect to have much banter.
Well, he's obviously got a new
It was funny.
Your standard for banter must obviously be just above the floor, because that joke is literally over 2,000 years old. It is the most hackneyed, cliched, stupid.
And also, this is coming.
And it was delivered with the robotic, tone of someone who has absolutely zero comic timing.
You don't like him much, do you?
And also from a man
not my favourite politician.
A man who has changed his position 13 times in a very short time.
Ah, good one.
Sorry, Kai, it's true.
Living in glass houses and all that.
That's a good one.
I saw even some people saying, well, actually, House of Commons being a workplace, anybody else across the country saying that to their colleague, they'd be fired.
Yeah. Would most people even know what the Kama Sutra
Well,
was?
I think Starmer will be fired pretty soon, so don't rule out that possibility.
Oh, but anyway, Emma, you tell me that you've got a completely relevant tantrum this week.
I do. It turns out with the Greenland news, in America, ICE, which is the people who are going about deporting illegal migrants at Trump's command, turns out to be the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to triggered tantrums. So take a look at this.
Are already surpassing Hitler, Nazi Germany. Do you not see this? If we have to debate the morality of does a person deserve to be shot in the face by a masked man who just jumped out of his car working for the government, what have we become? Why are we here scrolling?
Reopen the asylums.
As a side point, why are these loonies always in cars when they do these videos?
Yeah. I don't know.
It's a genuine question. Why do they do it?
Kai is like, this is a very
Kai,
reasonable video.
I can't speak for their minds.
You're the spokesperson for the
Not
loonies.
a point. You're just like, they're chuckling.
It's totally unhinged.
No, I disagree. That's not unhinged. I think they've got an absolute point with that. I mean, come on, you're talking about a mother that was killed in a car, at point blank. At least have some compassion for that.
There are people who are... there's another one that I could have chosen but didn't, was a woman who was saying, and one of the reasons why I didn't choose it was because it was a bit incitey, was saying that you should drive away, you should try and hit these people with your car. Like, it's not the point that they're making, it's how completely demented they are in making their point. These people are, like,
terrified?
So over the top.
But maybe also terrified.
They maybe are terrified, Joe. And people are being dragged out their car that looked like they could be illegal.
There was a guy in the US who was just simply driving an SUV, and he kept getting stopped because people thought that he was an ICE agent and had to keep explaining to them and trying to justify the fact that it's just his car. And a woman said to him, well, you should go and rent another car because people think that you're an ICE agent.
And the thing is about this is you never, and you know this is true when you're looking for tantrums, you can very rarely find people on their right of politics who have these ranty breakdowns. And I think think that's the point that Emma's making, not the content.
I understand the
but
point.
this ranting.
I'm trying to bring it. You know, sometimes it's useful to just take a step back and think about.
But it's not
why
healthy
that
to be
might
that hysterical.
No, I agree, and I don't think the left, has its best. As Trump once said, they're not sending their best people, but still, there are serious issues.
Anyway, listen, guys, thank you to all of our guests. Thank you for putting together a show that we put together on The Hoof. Thanks very much to Alex Armstrong. And to you, our lovely audience, for joining us in the fun tonight. It's been hard, it's been interesting, and it's actually been absolutely inspirational to watch Alex, who is up again next. Alex, what's on your show?
Thank you, Dr. Renee. Listen, it is a crazy, crazy weekend, isn't it? The Tories don't think Britain is broken. That's the same line that Labour is putting out there. Is the Uniparty back? Might they merge at some point? I don't know. Also, we're going to be talking about Greenland. There's a lot of fallout to digest here. I've got a fantastic panel with me. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Is there a stench of hypocrisy there? That, Iran, and so much more. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. We're expecting some rather dense areas of fog through the overnight period. This could cause some visibility issues in the morning. Much clearer skies across Scotland though, so turning colder here. And we do still have some rather thick areas of cloud through the first part of this evening, all thanks to this frontal system. Not only has it brought cloud, but it's also brought some spells of rain. This will clear into northern parts of Scotland through the overnight period. And for many areas, it should remain largely dry. A few showers still across Northern Ireland, and at times this cloud will be thick enough to produce some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle, but we are expecting some rather stubborn fog through the first part of Sunday morning. This could be very slow to clear and could cause some travel disruption through the early hours, so do take care if you're out and about early through Sunday morning. Now across Scotland it's a slightly different story. Clearer skies here, so quite a sharp frost. If we do see any mist or fog, it's likely to turn freezing. Much cloudier across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, some showers at times around coastal areas, and fairly similar elsewhere across England and Wales. Some very low, thick cloud at times, so it is going to be quite a grey, murky start for many of us. Also further spells of rain for the second half of the weekend, at first across southwest England, Wales, pushing northwards into the rest of England through the course of the morning. The best of the brightness likely across parts of Sussex and Kent, perhaps parts of East Anglia later on, and also across the far north of Scotland, perhaps even seeing some sunny spells here, but likely to remain fairly chilly under cloudier skies, though highs across the south reaching around 10 to 11 degrees Celsius. Heading into Monday, it's a fairly similar day. Once again, some mist and fog to start and plenty of cloud through the course of the day. This at times will bring in some outbreaks of rain, particularly across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. Once again, the best of the brightness across the far southeast and the far north of Scotland. More cloud to come into next week, though temperatures should remain mostly mild.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.